This is my response to Cooper on Bernie Sanders' healthcare. I first want to start off by saying good job. And yeah, so first off, taxes would increase, which you brought up. And I think we could connect that to I'm from Canada, and in Canada, we have universal healthcare. And it's so Bernie Sanders would, the taxes would raise. And yes, Canada's healthcare is paid through taxes, but instead of still having to pay for healthcare but it being cheaper in Canada, it's free for everyone, but everyone just pays for it in their taxes. So if you bring up the argument that yes, taxes would increase, but at the end of the day, it might be worth it. Like, why don't we just do what Canada's doing? Because like everyone can have healthcare there, which is beneficial. And right now there is a big shortage of doctors, and if we need to solve that too, if for this healthcare to go like be put in place, because a lot of people would be getting healthcare that don't have it right now. So like hospitals would be getting a lot more patients, and with the shortage right now, it would be a lot more difficult for people to get like checked out by those doctors. Okay, so I want to look at for my argument why this, because Bernie Sanders has come out saying that it probably won't happen, and I want to talk about like reasoning why it won't happen. And one of the reasons it hasn't happened is because they can't agree on who would be taxed, how much you would be taxed, and if it's worth it in the end of the day. Because a single payer healthcare system would cost the government a lot of money. According to Mercatus Center at George Mason University, Medicare for all would cost $32.6 trillion for over 10 years, which is a lot of money. And the government is very strict on their money. They love giving it to the military, which we talked about in class. And they give it to other things, but most of those things relate to the military, which is another issue that we don't even need to get into. And at the end of the day, the government's very cautious who they give their money to, and $32.6 trillion is a lot of money, and they could tax the people, but that's a lot of money added onto them. So they're just deciding whether it's worth it at the end of the day, because they're not sure yet. Another reason why Bernie Sanders' plan wouldn't work is because of how it would affect people if they added the tax. According to the Heritage Foundation, most Americans would be 73% would be financially worse off under Medicare for all, and all workers would have to pay 21.2% payroll tax in addition to their current taxes in order to fund the $32 trillion we were talking about. And under Medicare for all, households with employer-sponsored health coverage would have an average of $10,554 less in disposable income each year. And we talked about the reasons for why it would be a lot of money for the government, and it would cause a lot of struggle for the people too, because tax would be raised, longer wait times. Now let's talk about the doctors. There would be pay cuts for the doctors, and there's a shortage right now for the doctors, so they would have long hours still. And yes, they would have the pay cuts because of this money needs to come from somewhere, and they can't decide who's gonna pay it. So that's like the whole reason why this hasn't been passed yet, because yes, it has some good ideas, but it is a ton of money, and they don't the government doesn't want to really pay for it. Like, there's so many other problems in the world going on right now that could use money, and the government is trying to keep it all to themselves. And there's like the military has so much of that money, and that yes, they could give it to other place like Medicare, all this stuff, but there's so many other reasons why they're not. And at the end of the day, there's pros and cons to it, but at our current moment and where we are, I don't think it's best for right now. But maybe future later on, it's a possibility. Anyways, thank you so much for listening. Good job on your argument.